Okay, it's a minute after 1. If anybody comes in late, they'll miss my exciting introduction. This is David Carr. I am the main instigator behind WordPress, the WordPress RSVPMaker plugin, which can be used to organize a variety of kinds of events, promote your events by email and social media. There's integration with the MailChimp service for email broadcasts, so that's a way of sending out your event invitations. You can register people. You can prompt them to pay by either PayPal or Stripe. Stripe is just a new feature that is really an integration with another plugin where somebody else has done all the hard parts of integrating with the Stripe API. And you can set up a series of reminders and event invitations. And one of the aspects I've gotten very interested in recently is promoting webinars on a budget, registering attendees for the webinars and sending out reminders to them through WordPress. Typically using the YouTube Live free service from Google for internet broadcasting. But you can also embed other sorts of services and have the same kind of workflow where people get reminded about your events. But I guess typically one of the more common uses would be to do it on a low budget basis using YouTube Live, which is what I'm doing here. So I'm probably going to spend most of my time here doing screen sharing, but just to give you an idea of the variety of things RSVPMaker can be used for. This is the RSVPMaker.com website. It shows some samples. I guess the most active thing you see here is this webinar, but there are some other sample events booked a few months out, and a bunch shown on the homepage. The homepage right now features a prominent invitation to register for this event. This is a design known as an upside down homepage where you try and make the call to action very visible at the top of the page. So it's something I experimented with this time to see how many additional people it might bring in to register. We still have a fairly modest audience here. Edward, you said you have a blurred image on your screen, so you're mostly listening. You should be able to make the image larger. You can pop out the YouTube player to view directly on YouTube, and from there you can view it full screen if that helps. I can also up the magnification on some of these pages. So Edward, let me see. So we have a small intimate group here, even at full screen it's blurry. Okay, well, we'll do the best we can. Edward, I think you're one of my contacts from Toastmasters. So if I recognize the name right, so you're just exploring this for the first time. This is not something that you've used previously. Is that correct? You haven't set up a site using this software. If you're interested, I can invite you into the video chat so that we can talk. But just to give you an idea of the range of things, if you're familiar with some of my work in the Toastmasters area, I'm actually promoting a series of webinars like this similar format that are focused on the idea of taking public speaking online and the skills that you need to learn for that. So these are asking people to register with RSVPMaker. Again, there'll be a series of reminders that go out. You can also have a follow-up message that goes out after the webinar telling people where to tune in to see the replay. Another context where I've used this, and this is largely something that has grown out of my own projects, and I've made it available more broadly, but this is a political website for organizing Democrats in Broward County, Florida. In this case, there is a network of local Democratic clubs. They have their own passwords to log in and to post messages. So there is a whole series of these events that are published through the website. There's also a feature where we send out a weekly roundup of events, and that can also include an editor's note at the top, recent items from the blog. So, the point here is not necessarily my politics. The point is this is a capability that is available to you if you have some sort of organization that has events to promote. You can send out invitations to individual events, or you can email out a weekly or a monthly roundup of events. You can do those things through RSVPMaker. And this was largely organized as an opportunity for me to answer questions. So as you have them, please go ahead and post them to the chat. There are a couple of details of how the software works that do trip people up, and this is one of them. So you can either have a single event that appears across multiple dates. And the example here is a Cub Scout camping trip. So it's a weekend trip. It's a single event in the sense that we want people to register to go on the trip. We don't want to register them to go on each day of the trip, but it'll appear on 3 days on the calendar view. And if you view the individual event at the top of the event, it'll show the 3 different days that are associated with it. There is another approach to managing recurring events, and sometimes people get these things confused. So this is my home Toastmasters Club. It holds meetings every Friday at 7 a.m. So most months you look at the calendar and all you're going to see is every Friday 7 a.m. there's a meeting. But the third one on the list is a table topics conference, so that's going to have a different agenda. So we have this concept of being able to set up a template. So the template defines the way the organization typically operates. And then you can have variations. So if you have weekly meetings on one particular week, you might have a guest speaker or a different format for the agenda that you want to promote. So with the template, you define the template and you're going to check off a frequency of meeting. So it might be something like every Friday, or it might be the first Monday of the month. It could be the first and the third, or the second and the fourth. So those kinds of frequencies are supported. And the idea is that whenever you update the template, you have an option to update all the different events that were based on that template. And that's what this looks like. So it'll pop up, when you update it, it pops up with a series of events. You can check all to update them all, or you can check them off independently. And here, one of the things I'm showing is that one particular week's meeting has been modified independently of the template. So maybe I've customized that one a lot. I've actually put in all sorts of details about the special guest speaker, and I don't want to overwrite that one. So this is just warning me not to do that if I don't want to have that effect. So I can go through that live to show you, but I just wanted to go over the concept first. And then the PayPal and Stripe setup, when you sign up for a PayPal account, and there's a video on the site that goes through the setup process, but there are credentials that you can get to make a connection between your site and the PayPal service. So you would get those credentials, there's a username, a password, and another code called a signature. You can enter those on the setup screen and save it, and you should be able to prompt people to pay by PayPal. I'll demonstrate what a payment by PayPal looks like. And then just recently, we added support, or it's really an integration with this other plugin called WP Simple Pay Lite for a competing payment service, Stripe. Stripe apparently has some advantages in terms of its fee structure, not charging as many surcharges for things like international transactions. And so it's good to be able to support that as well. It does need to be hosted on an SSL secured website. So that's where you have the padlock symbol in the corner of the browser bar to show you that the transaction is secure. So that needs to be turned on for the site that you're working with. And this is it's a similar kind of thing where you have to get credentials from the company Stripe. You have to put them in here and record them in order for that to be enabled for your account. Another thing that becomes important, particularly if you're doing things like webinars, is you have to try and make the timing more reliable. So I can set through RSVPMaker a parameter that says I want a reminder to go out to people who are registered for my webinar 2 hours before the event. But there is some additional setup that you should do on your site if you want that to happen reliably, exactly 2 hours in advance, or within a few minutes. The scheduling mechanism that is built into WordPress basically checks whenever WordPress fires up, and that happens when somebody visits your website. So if nobody visits your website for the couple of hours before your event, the scheduled reminder will not go out. There is a way to set this up. This is showing the control panel utility, allows you to set up what's called a cron job. So that really does happen on Clockwork. It's built into the operating system of your web server. You set this up to make sure that that's triggered on schedule. Now, in the context of Toastmasters, I've been working on a project called WordPress for Toastmasters. You can, if you set up one of the free accounts that's supported through that service, this is already done for you. Where this would be important to do manually is if you have your own independent website, you might be responsible for setting up this detail. And let's see, with that, I'm going to go out of the slideshow and back to demo, and also check for questions again. Okay. You mentioned that RSVPMaker within WordPress. So WordPress is a blogging tool. It started out as a blogging tool. It's evolved into a more general purpose web content management tool, or at least it can be used that way by small businesses and businesses who want to have one common platform for managing their website. So there's actually two versions or incarnations of WordPress. the company behind WordPress operates basically a social media service for bloggers at WordPress.com. So you can go there, sign up for an account, and you'll get a blog. WordPress is also available as open source software. So it's free software that anybody can customize or contribute to. I've done most of the work by myself. I occasionally get a code contribution from other web developers. But one of the features of WordPress is it has what's called a plugin architecture. So you can choose a number of different types of plugins to add different behaviors or different features. So you can add things like the ability to process credit cards as a plugin. RSVPMaker is a plugin. Really what it's doing is it's allowing you to use the same editing tools, so I can format my event description the same way. I can have images embedded in my event description, and then I have some additional parameters that I can set. So let me show you on RSVPMaker.com. So new post would create a new blog post. I can also create a new page, or I can go to new event. So this is the RSVPMaker functionality. And I get access to the exact same editor that I would use for writing a blog post. Enter my text, fix my typo, make it bold, make it italic, add an image from the image library, or I could upload one. So that's the content editing part, but when you are creating an event, you don't want it to be displayed in the order that blogs are typically displayed. Blogs are displayed in the order of their posting. So it's always showing the most recently posted content. While an event calendar, I want the nearest upcoming event to be displayed first, and I want to be able to navigate from month to month. So when I go down to the bottom here, first thing I need to do is establish a date for my event. I can also click the little calendar widget and set it that way, and a time for my event. And there is a standard time zone set for this site. I can choose whether I want to display the time zone. Now, if you're hosting local events, if you're hosting luncheons, you probably don't really need to set a time zone because it's going to occur at a physical place. But for a webinar, time zones become important. There's also this little button that allows people to see in their own time zone what what the translation would be of that time. So if I'm set up for Eastern Standard Time, somebody else from the West Coast or from the UK wants to attend, they'll be able to see that. And then I decide whether I want to collect RSVPs. Like on the political website I showed you, a lot of those things are just informational. They're saying where and when they meet. Maybe there's a phone number of somebody to call, but for their regular monthly meeting, they don't collect RSVPs typically. But if they were holding a special event, they could have that option. When I turn on collect RSVPs, it gives me a series of additional parameters. I'll make this a little bit larger in case that helps you see it, despite the blurry screen. So there are a lot of different options here. The confirmation message can be as simple as thank you, or it can be including a link to a webinar, some other things. In the case of the webinars I do through YouTube Live, I just get a link from YouTube. I paste it in here, and it's automatically going to create a landing page for me. I can put a deadline. Maybe I don't want to accept any RSVPs, after the Monday before my event. So I can set a deadline, or I can make the registration not be available until a certain date. I could do that too. So let's accept pretty much the defaults here, although I did turn on the time zone display, and look at what we have so far. So it's a funny looking event description, but it does include a form down here. Because I'm logged in, it's showing me my information, but otherwise it would show a blank form. There's room to add guests. So typically for an in-person meeting, we might want to get the names of guests who are going to be coming to the luncheon. And if I'm going to have more than one guest, I can add to this list. And again, this is the default form. I can add a note. That form is also customizable. So let's go down here. There's kind of a coding system that can be used to customize the form for, maybe that's more for techies, or I can use this pop-up to decide what else I'm going to include here. And let's say that this is a luncheon or dinner. And I want to get the meal choice. I also want to get the meal choice for the guest. So if I update this and view it again, you'll see that now it's prompting me to pick whether I want steak. My wife's going to get the veggie meal, and so on. And so those things would be shown on the notification that comes in by email to the event organizer. It would also be sent back in a confirmation message to the person who RSVP'd, and it's available in a report that I can see on the back end. So if I go in here and I go to RSVP report, let's say, so it'll show 2 people are registered, and my wife is showing up as guest of David F. Carr. Let me go back to your questions. I mean, I don't know. You say buffering is just me. Could be just you. All right. RSVPMaker is a WordPress plugin. Do you see it standalone? Well, one of the things that I can do is, if you would like me to set up an events website for you, I can host that on RSVPMaker.com, which is what I actually did over here. This is not part of the, even though this is for the district, it's not part of the district website. It's at tmd47.rsvpmaker.com. No, it doesn't exist outside of WordPress. The main advantage of RSVPMaker is the idea that it can be built into your website, and so it can have the same branding. You can be in control of it to a greater extent than if you were using something like a Meetup or an Eventbrite. So, but those are, a couple of things that I'm working on in the coming year are getting more clients who may hire me to work on doing either being a webinar host or moderator for them, setting up event websites. So those are some things that I'm looking for as consulting gigs. The thing that I give away for free, and and it is pretty much completely free. Right now uh, is the WordPress plugin. Uh, I will give people a fair amount of support on the free plugin. Eventually, if they come back and they ask me for something that's a little bit too custom, I will tell them that I need to charge them something. They need to compensate me somehow. Or there's also a donation button on the RSVP maker site. So sometimes if people appreciate the support that I gave them, even though there was no quid pro quo, they will throw me 50 or 100 bucks. My main business is actually that I'm a writer, editor, and web consultant, and I do this because it's fun and because I'm into it, and also because it allows me to experiment with applying some of the things that I learned in the context of writing about other people and their digital businesses.